Sudharmaya Namaha, Om Devakarya Samudyataya Namaha, Om Sukshmatanave Namaha, Om Chinmayaya Namaha, Om Gurumurtaye Namaha, Om Sundaraya Namaha, Om Sulochanaya Namaha, Om Sumukhaya Namaha, Om Charvasaya Namaha, Om Keshavaya Namaha, Om Padmambujaya Namaha, Om Mandagavanaya Namaha, Om Charambharadharine Namaha, Om Ramaya Namaha, Om Mandirastapakaya Namaha, Om Shri Bhavachakaya Namaha, Om Gayatri Ajvanye Namaha, Om Arpana Svikarakaya Namaha, Om Vishnu Pujakaya Namaha, Om Namo Narayana Mantrapasakaya Namaha, Om Swaramaya Namaha, Om Madhura Kantaya Namaha, Om Krishna Sankirtana Valupaya Namaha, Om Stotra Priyaya Namaha, Om Mitabhashini Namaha, Om Vagmini Namaha, Om Chitrakala Visharadaya Namaha, Om Ratadharaya Namaha, Om Sadhave Namaha, Om Jagatpantaya Namaha, Om Sarvalokahitaya Namaha, Om Bhakta Priyaya Namaha, Om Surdaya Namaha, Om Anukulaya Namaha, Om Neyaya Namaha, Om Sudarshanaya Namaha, Om Bhaktavatsalaya Namaha, Om Premamataye Namaha, Om Subhekshanaya Namaha, Om Pritivadanaya Namaha, Om Swastidayakaya Namaha, Om Tarakaya Namaha, Om Anugrahaya Namaha, Om Vardhanaya Namaha, Om Architaya Namaha, Om Arthaya Namaha, Om Siddhipradaya Namaha, Om Janardanaya Namaha, Om Manoharaya Namaha, Om Mahakshaya Namaha, Om Siddheshwaraya Namaha, Om Bhasmabhushitaya Namaha, Om Atmalingaya Namaha, Om Lingarjana Protsakaya Namaha, Om Siddhi Sadhanaya Namaha, Om Madhavaya Namaha, Om Omkarapasakaya Namaha, Om Sukshmaya Namaha, Om Vishokaya Namaha, Om Satvikaya Namaha, Om Samadarshine Namaha, Om Dakshaya Namaha, Om Achintyaya Namaha, Om Nirahamkaraya Namaha, Om Nirmohaya Namaha, Om Avyagraya Namaha, Om Jitakrodaya Namaha, Om Vinayashilaya Namaha, Om Svavashaya Namaha, Om Kushalaya Namaha, Om Shamaya Namaha, Om Satyadharmaya Namaha, Om Nirvikalpaya Namaha, Om Viraktaya Namaha, Om Atindraya Namaha, Om Satyasandhaya Namaha, Om Pavitraya Namaha, Om Madhurasvabhavaya Namaha, Om Suranandaya Namaha, Om Nandanaya Namaha, Om Prasanatmane Namaha, Om Bhaktanidhaye Namaha, Om Sakshaye Namaha, Om Samatmaye Namaha, Om Sadayogine Namaha, Om Haraye Namaha, Om Sutapaya Namaha, Om Somyaya Namaha, Om Guyaya Namaha, Om Vimuktatmaya Namaha, Om Gaviraya Namaha, Om Guptaya Namaha, Om Atmaramaya Namaha, Om Shrivasaya Namaha, Om Devaya Namaha, Om Jyotidharaya Namaha, Om Dhanyaya Namaha, Om Gurave Namaha, Om Nuratikramaya Namaha, Om Gahanaya Namaha, Om Bhagavate Namaha, Om Harisharana Margadarshikaya Namaha, Om Kutashishagartakaya Namaha, Om Abhiprayaya Namaha, Om Sarvamata Samatyaya Namaha, Om Shamakata Bhavavadakaya Namaha, Om Premavatara Shri Vishwananda Swami Namaha. Ato Deva Avantono Yato Vishnu Vichakrame Pradivya Saptadhamavi Idam Vishnu Vichakrame Tridanidade Padam Samodhamasya Pagusure Trini Pada Vichakrame Vishnu Gopadabhya Ato Dharmani Dharyane Vishnu Karmani Pashadayato Vritani Paspase Indrasya yujasaka Tat Vishnu paramam paragu sada pashanti surya Divi vachakshuratata Tad vipraso vipanyavo jagirvagi sasamindate Vishnu yan paramam param. Avataraya vidmahi Sadgurudevaya dhimahi Tanno Vishwananda prachodayate Om Avataraya vidmahi Sadgurudevaya dhimahi Tanno Vishwananda prachodayate Om Avataraya vidmahi Sadgurudevaya dhimahi Tanno Vishwananda prachodayate Suryakoti samaya prabha Urinam guru me deva Sarvakaryeshu sarvada Sarvakaryeshu sarvada Om Bhurvubhuva Swaha Tatsavito Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurvubhuva Swaha Tatsavito Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurvubhuva Swaha Tatsavito Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat
Shri Krishna Vishnu Madhusudana Ketabhare Narayana Achyuta Trivikrama Chakrapane Detyadi Sajadhara Shri Dhara Vasudeva Gopala Krishna Hare Tava Suprabhatam Shri Rukmini Sabhavana Sahare Murare Radhisha Gopesha Surupa Pramadi Vanya Shri Dwarakashraya Vaikuntha Pate Bhuvanika Murte Gopala Deva Haraye Tava Suprabhatam Ninakrite Kamatarupa Varaha Murte Trivikramaya Guhane Braharama Rama Shri Rama Krishna Yadunandana Kalkirupa Gopala Krishna Haraye Tava Suprabhatam Govinda Madhava Mukunda Paraparesha Damodara Chadarananda Kadarishori Gogopa Gopi Jana Sambrita Dina Bando Gopi Jana Priyaraye Tava Suprabhatam Shiram Tishai Pujagani Sadvanta Sanana Sai Ramanga Shari Shri Gopa Mama Mridudalpa Sukadi Sai Gogopa Vallabharaye Tava Suprabhatam Shri Kashapatri Sukhanarada Gautamadi Brahmarshi Sangamani Sangama Bharatesho Tishtanti Devatama Darshana Bhagaheto Gopala Sekara Hare Tava Suprabhatam Mandara Chari Tulasi Dala Malikadyahe Madhani Anjali Buddhi Samudaharanti Tishtanti Tvat Bhavatadhara Tale Munindraha Radha Manohara Hare Tava Suprabhatam Vedatrayam Patati Gotama Kana Guya Gayanti Satguna Ganu Varada Savarga Sankirtayanti Tavanama Kada Visesha Shri Narada Dirshaya Tava Suprabhatam Govardhano Dharana Gopa Kishora Gopa Gopi Janamrita Suvesha Bhavadi Podan Trilokya Mohana Sumangala Divya Deha Shri Rukmini Savarada Tava Supramatam Shri Vatsa Shindu Sharanagata Parijata Bhakarti Vanjana Kripakara Dina Bando Divyanta Gayati Jana Priya Divya Rupa Shri Nanda Gopa Tanaya Tava Suprabhatam Padma Padma Mukha Padma Dara Prameya Padma Laya Swarata Padma Nivasa Shori Padmo Bhavati Sura Sevita Pada Padma Padma Dinata Haraye Tava Suprabhatam Vrindatale Viharanaya Mahendra Vandya Kandalpadalpa Haratiya Sudesha Rupa Chandrananaya Chida Chandranani Pradeya Govinda Yada Haraye Tava Suprabhatam Shri Nandanandana Yashoda Kumara Dira Mayangadina Davichona Supushpahara Nilambodastu Sarira Rama Vihara Gopala Deva Haraye Tava Suprabhatam Shivan Shrijam Bhavati Satya Sugandhi Vadra Shri Mitra Linda Divasa Prabhu Potri Kalyahe Tishkanti Dina Vamame Navase Vanarha Gopi Mana Priyadare Tava Suprabhatam Shri Krishna Achyuta Ananta Mukunda Shori Radha Manohara Janardana Chakapane Namani Diga Munayuna Nisambaranti Brahmi Muhurta Samaye Tava Suprabhatam Shri Krishna Suprabhatam Ye Patanti Manisam Bhuri Kritam Papam Shri Krishna Graeto Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anade Radhe Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamam Bhajami Govinda Madi Purusham Tamam Bhajami Chintamani Prakara Satma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vriteshu Surabhira Vipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shata Sambrama Sevamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamam Bhajami Govinda Madi Purusham Tamam Bhajami Vinum Parantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksham Bharavatam Samasikam Buddha Sundarangam Gandharva Kodi Kamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govinda Madi Purusham Tamam Chandrakala Satvanamaya Vamsi Radhangaram Pranaya Kenikala Vilasam Shamam Tribangalalitam Niyadam Prakasham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Andaniyasya Sakalindriya Vritimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chimaya Satyutvala Vikasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitamatsutamanadim Anantarupam Aryam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Dulabam Adulabam Atmavakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Mantastu Koti Satavansara Sampragamyo Vayodatapi Manasomuni Pungavana Sopyashtiyaka Padachinya Vichintya Tantri Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatum Jagadanda Koti Yachaktirasti Jagadanda Chayaya Dantaha Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Yadbhava Bhavita Diyam Manujasvateva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusha Sukteya Meva Nigama Patitestu Bhakti Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavis Tabeya Eva Nijarupataya Kalamihi Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma Buddha Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Premantana Shurita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadeva Nidayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundarama Chitya Gunasvarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Ramani Murti Shukalani Amena Tishtan Nainavataram Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishnam Svayasam Bhavat Paramapumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananta Koti Koti Svasesha Vasudhadi Vibhuti Vina Tat Brahma Nishkaramanam Tamashesha Bhuta Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Shatani Sute Trigunya Tat Vishaya Veda Vitaya Maina Sattva Valambe Para Sattva Vishuddha Sattvam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmakaya Manasho Ya Pradinam Pratipalam Smaratam Upedya Nila Itena Bhuvanani Jayate Dasya
Vedam Nitale Chatasya Devi Mahesha Haridhama Suteshu Teshu Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vihidaschayena Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Sri Siti Pranaya Sadhana Satyeka Chaye Vayasya Bhuvanani Viparti Durga Nichana Rupana Piyasya Chate Satesa Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Kshiram Yathada Divikaira Vishesha Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pratikasti Hetoho Yashambhutam Apitata Samupetikaya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Vipachireva Hinashantaramabhyupetya Vipayate Vivritahetu Samanadharma Yastanrgeva Hicha Vishnutaya Vivati Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Nana Vajali Badati Smayoga Nidrammananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupaha Aidara Shakti Mavalambya Param Samutim Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yaseka Vishvasita Kala Matavalamya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanataha Vishnu Mahansaya Yasya Kala Vishesho Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Vasvanyatashva Sakaleshu Nijeshu Tejaha Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apita Tvaratra Brahmaya Isha Jagadanda Vidana Kanta Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yatpada Pallava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Vande Pranama Samaye Saganadi Raja Vignam Vihantu Malavasya Jagatayasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Maruti Shasya Kanasta Tatma Manasiddhi Jagatrayani Yasmat Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yachakshurisha Savita Sakala Gahana Yasyagnaya Brahmati Samrita Kala Chakro Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Shrutayastapamsi Brahmadikita Patagavadayasya Jivaha Yadatta Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhana Rupa Palavajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Cha Bhakti Bhaja Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Vitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Seva Bhavahe Sanchitya Tasya Sadrishim Tanuma Purete Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Kairanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Shri Suktam, Bhu Suktam, Lila Suktam. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Hiranyavarnamanim Suvarnarajatasrajam Chandram Hiranmayim Lakshmim Jatavedo Mahavaha Tham Mahavaha Jatavedo Lakshmim Anapagamim Yasyam Hiranyam Vindeyam Kamasvam Purushanam Asvapurvam Ratamadhyam Hastinara Prabodhinim Shriyam Devim Upavaye Shrirma Devim Jusatam Kamso Smita Hiranya Prakaram Ardram Jvaranti Tripta Tarpayanti Padme Stitam Padmavarnam Tam Yopavaye Shriyam Chandram Prabhasa Yashasa Jayanti Shriyam Loke Devajustam Udara Tam Padmini Mim Sharanamaham Prabhate Alakshmi Arena Shatam Tvam Rane Aditya Varni Tapaso Dijato Vanaspatis Tava Vrikshota Bilvaha Tasya Valani Tapasanudanto Mayantaraya Sabaya Lakshmi Upeto Mam Devasaka Kirtisamanina Saha Pradurbuto Smirastre Smitirgindritim Dadato Me Shutpipasamalam Jesham Lakshmi Nashayamyaham Abhutimasamriddhim cha sarvan nirdunami grihat Gandhadvaram duradasham nityapushtam karishinim Ishvarigam sarvabhutanam tamiho pavaye shriyam Manasakka mamakutim vachasakyamasimahi Pashunam rupamanyasya mahishri sayatam yasha Kardamena prajabhutamani sambhava kardama Shriyam vasayame kule mataram padmamalini Apasajajasnegdani shikli tabasame grihe Nichadevi mataram shriyam vasayame kule Ardra pushkarini pushtim suvarna hema malinim Suryam hiranmayim lakshmim jatavedo mavaha Artram yakkarinim yashtim pingalam padma malinim Chandram hiranmayim lakshmim jatavedo mavaha Tamavaha jatavedo lakshmi manapagaminim Yasyam hiranyam prabhutam gavo dasyoshvan Vindeyam purushanaham Yashichi prayato bhutva juhyada jamanvaham Suktam panchadasha chamsa shri kama satatam japet Padma priye padmini padmahaste padmalaye padmanalaya takshi Vishva priye vishnamanonukule tatpada padmam mahi sannidhastva Mahadeve cha vidmahe vishnupadne cha dhimahi Tanno lakshmi prachodayat Om Shanti 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 Gomir Gomnadyo
परिणन्तरिक्षं महित्वा उपस्थिते देवतिथिग्निमन्नादमन्नाद्यायाददे आयङ्गो कृष्णिरक्रमीरसनन्मातरं पुनः पितरं च प्रयंसुवः त्रिगुंशत्रामविराजति वाक्पतङ्गाय शिश्रये प्रत्यस्य वहद्युभिः अस्य प्राणादपानं यन्दश्चरनिरोचन व्यक्यन्महिषस्सुवः यद्वा कृतपरोवपमन्युनायनभट्य सुकल्पमग्ने तत्तव पुनस्तो दीपयामसि यत्ते मन्युपरोक्तस्य पृथिवीमनुदध्वसे आदित्या विश्वे तद्देवावसवस्य समापरन् मनोज्योतिर्जुषतामर्चं गच्छन्नं यज्ञगुं समिमं ददातु बृहस्पतिस्तनुतामिमं नो विश्वे देवा यमादयन्ताम् मेदिनी देवी वसुन्धरा स्यात् वसुधा देवी वासवी ब्रह्मवज्रसः पितृणागं श्रोत्रं चक्षुर्मनः देवी हिरण्यगर्भिणी देवी प्रसूवरी सदने सत्यायने सीता समुद्रवती सावित्री यदा देवी मह्यङ्गी महोदरणी महोगतिष्ठा शृङ्गे शृङ्गे यज्ञे यज्ञे विभीषणी इन्द्रपत्नी व्यापिनी सुरसनिरिह वायुमती जलशयनी श्रियं दाराजा सत्यन्तोपरिमेदिनी शोपरिरदम्बरिगाय विष्णुपत्नी महीं देवी माधवी माधवप्रिया लक्ष्मी प्रियसखी देवी नमाम्यच्युतवल्लभां धनुधरायै विद्महे सर्वसिद्ध्यै धीमहि तन्नो धरा प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः नीला देवीगं शरणमहं प्रपद्ये गृह्णाहि कृतवती सवितादिपद्यै पयस्वतीरङ्किराशानो अस्तु ध्रुवादिशा विष्णुपद्यगोदा शेषानः सहसो यामनोता बृहस्पतिर्मथरिष्वोतवायुः सन्दुवाना वाताभिनो गृह्णन्तु विष्टम्बो दिवो दरुण पृथिव्याः शेषाना जगतो विश्वपत्नी महादेवे च विद्महे विश्वपत्नी च धीमहि तन्नो नीला प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम्
ॐ अज्ञानातिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Okay, good day, good morning. So the verse or the topic for today is from Canto 4, chapter 14. So actually I wanted to tell this story before I share the verse, is the story of King Vina. So King Vina is, and so this part in the Bhagavatam is the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. So there's really quite amazing conversations in the Bhagavatam, and here Vidura is inquiring from Maitreya about the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So in the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, there's one king called Anga. And so King Anga was a very righteous king. He was treating his people very well, and he was very loved by everybody. But there was one thing or one problem that he had, and he couldn't have children, or he couldn't have a son. And so he was inquiring, why is this? I must have done something wrong in my life. There must be some ill-doing, some karma, some sinful behavior on my behalf that I have done that I'm cursed not to have a child or a son. Because of course for a king it's important to have a son to carry on the lineage. So he was inquiring to the rishis, the sages, what have I done, what can I do to change? So the sages were, looking at his third eye or whatever. And they said, well, actually we cannot find any sinful actions in this life from you. But actually in your last life, you have done some mistakes. And that is why karmically you cannot have children. But what we can suggest is that if you worship the Supreme Lord, then for sure He will bless you and you will be able to have a son. So he said, okay, let's do it. So I inquired them to do a yagna on his behalf. So they were doing a yagna. And during the yagna, there was a golden figure that appeared in a white clothes and carrying a bowl with some boiled rice. And so he gave it to the king, and the king offered to his wife to eat. And so the wife became pregnant. And so from that pregnancy, a son was born, and his name was Veena. But opposite to his father, his son was extremely cruel and very, you could say, irreligious or very unrighteous from childhood on. You could say he was the opposite of Prahlad in Hiranyakashipu's situation. So actually throughout his childhood, his son tried to teach him, his father tried to teach him, tried to educate him, tried to bring him to a righteous path, tried to make him, worship God or whatever, but nothing ever helped. Right? So his son was so cruel, and there was some examples how he would enjoy taking his arrow and bows go to the forest to hunt and to kill animals for sport. It's actually even explained that if he didn't like one of his playmates in school, he would just kill them. Right? So he was very cruel, very unrighteous kid. And so he grew up, and his father tried everything to bring him to the right path. But nothing worked. And so one night, King Anga was lying in his bed and he couldn't sleep. So he got up and he went for a walk, and he was thinking about how unlucky he was, or how unhappy he was. And he actually started to regret that he had asked for a son in the first place. That the world would be better off without his son. Right? It's a terrible son. I guess that teaches us to be aware of what we ask for sometimes, but whatever. So he is contemplating on the situation, and eventually he comes to the result or the solution that maybe actually it is better to have a bad son than to have a good son. Because you have a good son, you become attached to him. Right? And you realize actually maybe it's a blessing in disguise that the Lord has given me such a bad son. Because I'm not actually feeling attached to him at all. Right? So basically what he does, he never returns to his chambers or his bed. He leaves his wife, Sunita, and he leaves his son and all his kingdom and his wealth and his throne, and he retires to the forest without telling anybody. Right? So in the night he just leaves. Says, because he realized, there is nothing greater than detach from this world. My son has taught me to detach. So I would just leave everything. So he left everything, and obviously the kingdom or the people, they are very sad. They look for the king everywhere. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows where he went. So everybody is looking for him, but they can't find him. So eventually they give up, and they say, okay, what should we do? So the sages, the ones who perform the yagna, the one who kind of are responsible for the son or bringing the son, they suggest, as it is tradition, the son has to become the king. But all the ministers of the kingdom are very upset about this suggestion, because they said it's such a terrible, unwise, unintelligent, cruel son. You cannot make him the king. It would be terrible for the kingdom. But the sages insist. So, and there's, I guess, a lack of options. So they make the son to be the king. So King Vina is thrown as the king, and he rules very cruelly, to no surprise. And everybody becomes very unhappy. He goes around killing everybody he doesn't like. He goes around trying to gain more, trying to take more from all the citizens. He prohibits all the Brahmins to do yagnas and sacrifices, and tells everybody to worship him. Right? And so there's one of the verses, he says, those who out of gross ignorance do not worship the king, who is actually the Supreme Lord himself, experiences happiness neither in this world nor in the world after. And actually the verse that I wanted to take for today was from Canto 4, chapter 14, verse 28. And he says, Tasman mam kamabhir vipra yachvadham garamatsara bhalim chamayam harata mato nya kogra bhuk bhuman. King Venas continued. So there's a couple of verses singing the praises of King Vina, by King Vina. So King Vina continued, for this reason, O Brahmanas, you should abandon your envy of me, and by your ritualistic activities you should worship me and offer me all paraphernalia. If you are intelligent, you should know that there is no one superior to me who can accept the first oblations of all sacrifices. So this great personality of King Vina is requesting everybody to worship him, to offer everything to him. Obviously, this reminds of somebody, right? Hiranyakashipu asked everybody to do the same. So, obviously, the sages, this is actually the part in which the sages were convinced by the ministers, and obviously they were not blind. They could see what is happening. So they said, if we will try to convince the king of his ill nature and get him to change, otherwise we have to kill him. Right? So basically this is the conversation in which they're trying to bring him to the right side, to the righteous path. But clearly, as we can see, it didn't work that well. Because, well, this is the verses that he's answering them. So basically, they, with their power of their minds, they burn him to ashes. And that's the end of the story of King Vina. It is said that his grandfather is the Lord of Death. And so he is unrighteous, which is funny because Lord of Death is also Yamraj, which is, the Lord of Righteousness. But anyway, so the topic that I wanted to exemplify with the story, which I think is maybe not so much known, obviously. I think is a story where you can see that it's, not told so many times in the Srimad Bhagavatam, of King Vina, is greed. So I spoke already about Kama and Krodha. So one missing in the Trinity is Lobha. Right? So greed, we can see in King Vina, from his childhood, he tried always to gain more and get more. And similarly, we can see with many examples in the Bhagavatam, with many characters who qualify these demonic qualities, that they have greed. And so greed is obviously connected to karma, to desire and to anger, because especially desire, because greed is what makes one want more, right? What makes you run after the desire that you want, and the one that pushes you to run after more desire, after the desire that you might have fulfilled already. So it is that force that pushes one to urge for more, to long for more, in a negative sense. Yeah. So a few ways to look at greed or break down greed. So firstly, greed is the excessive desire for material wealth or material possessions and resources and whatever else. So it is that constant engagement of the mind and translation into physical actions that will make one want to gain more. Automatically what happens if one is in that mindset is that one starts to neglect spiritual values such as compassion, such as humility, such as selflessness, right? Because very often that's the danger of greed and desire, that one is not even aware that when we are in that mind space. Because it's not necessarily like, oh, I want a car, I want a house. Greed for these kind of character, material things. But very often it's more subtle things, such as I want recognition, or I want some kind of recognition for my actions. That's some more subtle things. I think we also even have that with Guruji. No? I do something, I do seva, I do that, and I do this. I would like Guruji, or desire Guruji to be happy, to show that in some way. If you don't get it, you know what happens from the result of desire comes anger. Right? The problem is that we don't learn for that. So we are greedy for various desires. So we continue to search for them, or to hunt for them, so to speak. So what happens also with the neglect of spiritual values is the lack of contentment. That is what causes greed. Because if one is never happy with what one has, one will always look for more. And that is not meant in a spiritual sense. Obviously, even this, 2 weeks ago, whatever now, in America, Guruji was saying in his talks that a devotee is never satisfied. A devotee is never happy, so to speak, or satisfied with the service that one does. He's always trying to improve, to become better in the service that we do. But of course, that is not greed. That is a different type of urging to do more, right? Next is the aim of hoarding and attachments. Because of course, greed in a material sense always wants to gain more, to get more. Even if there is not a need for certain things, or there is not a necessity for survival, you always want more. You want more comfort, you want more sweets, you want more food, you want more money, you want more of everything. So it's the hoarding of material things that create the hoarding of material attachments. Because that is also something that one has to be always aware of. Like King Anga realized with his son, that by having a son, by having a child, naturally, attachment to the child is created. I told a story of Subhadra Dasi before, that had the grace of having Krishna as her son. She also said, maybe the reason why Krishna isn't allowing me to have a son is because obviously the Lord always wants the best for me. And the Lord knows that by having a son, I create attachment to that son. Right? Similarly, King Anga also realized that to have child, to have kingdom, to have wealth is attachment. And so maybe to have a bad son is a good thing, because in that way I don't create attachment. On the opposite, it pushes me to detach from the world. Right? And the last one is, the last result, let's put it like this, from greed is the disregard of others. Because acting upon greed, one naturally disregards the well-being or the will of others. Because I only care about what I can gain, what I can get, what I desire and what I want. Right? And of course, that is not a good thing. However, that is also, in a subtle sense, something that happens to us on a daily basis also. Naturally, as we are not realized, we always live in our own universe. And Guruji kind of always says it in in a funny way, but he always says you always act like everything rotates around you, like the whole universe rotates around you. But actually it's true, right? As long as we are not constantly able to perceive everything in an objective way and do every action in his name or for him, we are always in his mindset, consciously or unconsciously, that everything rotates around us, right? And so in that mindset, it is very easy to lose sight of what is beneficial only for me, because also it is not about victimizing ourselves or making ourselves small always. That is not what humility is either. But we easily lose sight of what is harmful for others on the path of trying to get what we want. Right? That is important to keep sight on also. As we now often take this example, I guess, of Bhishma, that at the time when he took the vow, it was fine, because at the time, it was for his father to be able to get a wife. So if he gives up what was rightfully his, it's not a problem, because his father can still get children, right? But later on, as he stuck to the vow, and that's, I guess, what Guruji sometimes criticizes, the situation changed, right? So as his father didn't have children, this whole drama unfolds, culminating in the Kurukshetra war, in which millions of soldiers died. And so you could argue that the only reason this war happened and all these people died is because Bhishma decided not to break his vow and stick to it. And that you can question the bigger picture of what is beneficial to me, meaning to stick to my promise, to my vow, or to not to, for the benefit of millions of others, right? Obviously, we don't usually have that choice to make between me and a million other people. But in the bigger picture, it's always important to look, what is it that is beneficial to me, and is it harmful for others? So it does, what I pursue, is it harmful for others, is always a great sign whether it is to be pursued or not. Because we can get many things, but how many people do we have to step over to get it, right? And that's not in a material sense. It's also in a spiritual sense. In a subtle way, how many times do we want or desire to be close to Guruji, or push to do certain seva that brings us to a certain recognition? But it is really about being humble and being aware that whatever comes our way, whatever is given by him, is the right thing for us. There's no need to hunt for things, because they will come, right? So lobha or greed is the third one that Krishna highlights as one of the three that lead one to darkness, the three qualities, and degrade one. It was also one of the 14 qualities that Guruji listed in the first day of his Bhakti talks. The 14 qualities that are degrading someone. It was one of them also. So greed, as Krishna says in chapter 16, verse 22, is that in the absence of these three qualities that lead one to darkness, one will only do the type of actions which are beneficial to the self, which are beneficial to one's spiritual path, to the detachment of material things, and for a higher purpose. And so it's important to be aware, as Krishna in chapter 16 highlights both divine and demonic qualities, to be aware of and conscious of both, and to be able to, as he says in the next word, let the scriptures be our guide to determine what to do and what not to do. So to be aware and conscious of both, so that we consciously are able to choose what is it that I want in my life, and what is the type of actions and choices that I make in my life consciously, right? Not just instinctively choose what to do. Jai Gurudev.
Namaste Naire Simhaya. Namaste Naire Simhaya. Pralada Lara Daine. Pralada Lara Daine. Hiranya Kashi Purvakshaha. Jaya vinayagna na hote, vastra na koi pata, meya vastra na koi pata, kana panga vei baba, kana panga vei baba, sabatuma se ata, om jaya Lakshmi mata, shubhaguna mandira sundara kshira dadijata, meya kshira dadijata, meya kshira dadijata, meya kshira dadijata, ratna chatura dasatuma vina, ratna chatura dasatuma vina, koi na himmapata, om jaya Lakshmi mata, Mahalakshmi ji ki arati, jo koi janagata, meya jo koi janagata, meya jo koi janagata, meya jo koi janagata, Purananda samata, Purananda samata, Papa uttara jata, Om Jaya Lakshmi Mata, Om Jaya Lakshmi Mata, Meya Jaya Lakshmi Mata, Tumako Nishadina Sevata, Tumako Nishadina Sevata, Hara Vishnu Vidata, Om Jaya Lakshmi Mata, Om Jaya Lakshmi Mata, Meya Jaya Lakshmi Mata, Tumako Nishadina Sevata, Tumako Nishadina Sevata, Hara Vishnu Vidata, Om Jaya Lakshmi Mata, Om Jaya Lakshmi Mata, Tvameva Mata Chapita, Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhushcha Sakha, Tvameva, Tvameva Vidya Dravinam, Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyoti Gamaya, Mrityurma Amrita Gamaya, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Hari Om.
Prem se bolo Shri Lakshmanayan Bhagwan ki, Prem se bolo Sri Bhutabhrteshwarnath Narasimha Bhagwan ki, Prem se bolo Shri Radha Krishna Kanalal ki, Prem se bolo Shri Ramanujacharya ki, Prem se bolo Shri Mavata Kriya Babaji ki, Prem se bolo Satguru Deva Sri Swami Vishwananda Mahaprabhu ki.
Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Janavalabhaya Paraya Paramapurushaya Parakarma Mantra Yantra Tantra Oshadasni Shastrani Samara Samara Mrityo Mochaya Mochaya Om Namo Bhagavate Mahasudarshana Dipti Jvala Pritaya Sarvadik Shukla Humpat Paraksmane Parabrahmane Paramjyotishe Swaha Om Shanti 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 Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Hari Om.
Jai Jai Shri Radhe,
Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe,
Venkaramana Govinda, Gopika Jivasaram Govinda, Bhaktavatsaram Govinda, 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 Pundalika Varade, Eknath Namde, Pandalinath Maharaja ki, Samasta Bhakta Mandali ki, Alvar Perumanal Tiruvara